This is my 1 year anniversary streaming for live streaming. I wanted to do a question and answer today. Um, and so I had someone submitted some questions, and now I'm not going to be able to do a reading, any readings tonight, because I have a migraine coming on, and so I have a hard time reading questions and cards when I have a migraine. So we're gonna just go talk about do these questions and answer the questions. And so the first question, now one of the things I wanted to say is that on this channel I've been reading cards for 1 year, and I'm actually a new reader. That's one of the things that maybe a lot of people don't realize, is that I haven't been reading very long, and I haven't been doing tarot for very long, and so I'm just a shade over 3 years into. I started doing tarot just about 3 years ago, and it was like, what was it? So I started 999 show uh, 4 years ago. I'm going to be going into my fifth year on the 999 show, and so in my first year, I started doing 999 show. And what was that? 4 years ago? What year? So that was 2022. 2022, I started doing 999 show, and then about partway through the year, I wanted to start doing tarot, and but I didn't know tarot. I didn't know tarot at all. I didn't know tarot at all. I got like COVID. My mother was hospitalized for COVID, and while she was in intensive care for COVID, is when I decided that welcome. That was when I decided to start doing tarot. And one of the questions that was asked of me is, how many tarot decks do I have? I have over 40 tarot decks. But so this was my first tarot deck that I got, and while my mother was sick in intensive care with welcome, and with this with COVID, and I was sick with COVID too. Okay, that's nice. And then um, now this tarot deck stinks. I don't really use it because it has a smell to it, and that smell to it triggers migraines. And I have another deck just like it that is equally as stinky, and it's a Y spell deck. And I got this like almost 2 years ago, and this one still stinks. Hello, welcome. I am doing great. So we're doing a little question and answer. This is a question and answer celebrating my 1 year streaming on this channel. Now I have another channel that I've been streaming on for 3 years. I have another channel that I've been streaming for 3 years on, and I do other random content on that. And so one of the questions that was asked of me is, how many tarot decks do I have? And so we're going to talk about a little bit about that. And I have over 40 tarot decks that I've collected in the last 3 years. I might say I have, this one is my smallest deck, and this one here is my largest deck. And so you look at it, the smallest and the largest. And I like this one. I like this small deck. Now this one is new. I haven't started reading with it, but I plan to eventually do in-person readings, and I got larger cards for that. But for the channel, I mainly just use. There's two tarot decks that I use for the channel. I use this one here. This is the Apprentice Tarot, and it uses the universal weight coloring. And so, like for instance, this uses the universal weight coloring. And I think that's my favorite deck. My favorite deck, and I have one, two, three. I think yeah, this one, two. I have another version of this. I have three different versions of this deck. This one, a pocket size one. I don't know where that's at, and then there's this the mini one. And so what I read primarily on this channel, I'm reading with this deck, and then this other one that I picked up for my birthday just a few months ago was this one, this Arcanum. And this is kind of a mixed. They mix. It's sort of a mixture of tarot and oracle, and it's really nice. And I like the fact that it doesn't have any nudie cards in it, so it makes it so it doesn't have any nudie cards in it, so it makes a good YouTube deck for so you don't like have YouTube violations, because YouTube dings you when you have like nudie when you um, do nudes and stuff like that. And so, like for instance, on my other channel 999 show, I was trying live content, and someone, well, I had them come up and do interview him live. Someone went out there and whipped out their wanger and showed their wanger right on live, and that was like the last time I did that, because that was not something I wanted on my channel, because my channel is not we don't we're not. I'm not taking trolls and that are like gonna because I could do phone calls with this channel if I have the ability to do phone calls with this channel. I have a YouTube phone number that I could use, but because I'm worried about what you guys will do, because if you come in here and you do a live call and you're actually a troll, who knows what the hell is going to come out of your mouth. And so that's why I'm not going to be. I would love to be able to do live call. Have one of you guys call in, and we can call in your questions and do that. I would love to be able to do that, but I don't have enough trust for those asking the questions that they won't come up and say and start talking and with a potty mouth and so forth. Now that was 40, roughly over 40 tarot decks, and I have about, I think, 12. 12. I'll be right back. So we got a new dog yesterday, and the dog has been rehomed 4 times, and the dog is having some issues right now. So I'm not going to go blathering on too long with this program, simply because the dog needs some comforting and so forth. But so, anyways, I have about 12 oracle decks. I use most all of them, but there's a couple of them of the tarot decks that I just use for like devotion. So like this one, the biblical tarot, I just use this for me. And so I have a ritual that I go through every week, and to prep myself, because I come straight out of Christian tradition. I come right out of the Christian tradition, though I have deviated from Christianity a lot, to the point where I can't really call myself a Christian anymore. But I do call myself a Christian mystic, if that makes any sense. So if you so Christian mysticism is a lot is it so um it's different. I've always kind of been more gnostically and mystically inclined. because my biblical interpretations are a lot more metaphorical. And so one might ask, well, how can a Christian do tarot? Well, a Christian can't do tarot. That's why you don't call yourself a Christian anymore. I can't necessarily call myself a Christian anymore, even though I go to church every week, and and so forth. And I still attend a church, church services every week. And but I come, as I say, I come straight out of the Christian tradition, but my beliefs have deviated so much that over the years that I really can't technically can't call myself Christian anymore. But nevertheless, so this is like one that I use just for my devotions, and I use it like every week. I'll spin out a number with a couple tops, and I will use this, and I get this number, and then I'll use that number to go select some cards that will be for me for the week, and then I go into this St. Joseph's Missal, and I take the page number that I spin from the tops, and I start thinking about themes. I start thinking about themes of what I'm gonna do for this show through the week, and so forth. Welcome, Desiree. And so that's kind of what I use. That's what I use this biblical tarot for, and then I also use another oracle deck, which I'm almost done through all the cards. And this is a Mary Magdalene oracle deck, which I just use. I take a card a week, and that's for meditating on and kind of thinking on. So this was like the card that I drew last week. I haven't really done this week's. Welcome, Desiree. I haven't done this week's thing yet because I had a family reunion on Saturday, and then a new dog came into my life yesterday on Sunday, and the dog is having some hard time. Good night, Desiree. And so, like, this card is the soul, and I am free. And so, just to have these little sentiments and affirmations, and then I also have lots of icons. I really like icons, and I've liked icons. The Christian tradition that I come straight out of is I was baptized as a Lutheran 49 years ago, and then confirmed a couple years later after that. And then when I was 26, 27, I went through the rite of Christian initiation for adults in the Catholic Church. Then I was confirmed as a Catholic. But then I also did schooling. I did a academic study of religion in college and in graduate school. So I have a real heavy Bible uh, background. But despite all that heavy Bible background, I still deviated because I had this desire to do divination, but I always just sort of suppressed it. And so when I had the COVID 3 years ago, yeah, 3 years ago, and my mother was in intensive care, and then a few years before that, in 2012, on June 24th, 2012, I lost my dad in a car accident. I'll be right back. All right, so I'm back. The dog escaped, and so the dog is its second night being here, and so so it was kind of like an emergency situation, and my mother, who I take care of, is 86, and so she was kind of melting down just a little bit about um, the situation. So where was I? I was kind of talking about starting tarot, and so I'm not actually going to be able to do any readings tonight. I'm doing a question and answer, and I have a migraine and a migraine headache. I'm not really won't be able to really do your question, but if you have a question about me or the channel, please ask that question. I'll try to come back on tomorrow to do a tarot divination. And so when I was was getting in with my stories, I apologize, but let me write your question down, and I will get to you the very next time I come back on live streaming. So I will write that question down at K little k a little a UH1QI. And the question is will my ex-wife get a divorce? To become your second kingdom spouse? What does that mean? What does second kingdom spouse mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? Please tell me what second kingdom spouse means. Okay, so my background is in mysticism, and Gnosticism and mysticism is what my religious tradition background is. Okay, I'll write that down. Jazzy Bella, I'm not doing any divination questions today. I'm not in. I have so I was just gonna do a question and answer, like a Q&A program, because this is the 1 year anniversary of me starting as a streamer. If that's okay. Jazzy Bella. And my mother is having some. Well, we got a new dog yesterday. A new dog came into the house who's been rehomed 4 times in 2 years, and the dog is upset, and my mother is upset. So I will ask that question: will Scott and I reconcile? So I wrote your question down, and I wrote your question down. This other person, and we will. The next time I come on live, I will answer your question. But we had some questions that was asked, and one of the questions that was asked was like, how many tarot decks did I have, and how many oracle decks did I have? And I have roughly 40 tarot decks and about 12 oracle decks, including Calhil Gibran, the Prophet. And this is a book, and it has 100 pages in it. And this I use as an oracle deck. And another oracle deck is one that I made. I made this out of losing scratch tickets. And then there is this one is 22 cards for the letters of the Okay. So you're currently married to kingdom spouse soulmate. This would be a divine tri-union kingship Adam. Oh, that doesn't. Oh, wow. Could you KKA you could you take that question and those details, please? And I want you to take those details because I want to try to understand. Can you go to my post? Can you go onto my channel, go to the post, and put those details here, please? Can you write what you wrote there? KKAAU1QI. Can you take those details, go to the post section, and write it under this one, please? And that way, the second kingship, because this is the first time I ever heard of that. Um, I want to understand. I don't really want to get your question wrong. Does that make any sense? I don't want to I don't because I don't really still don't quite understand what that means. Well, with the with how they with how our government is today, they're likely going to not approve your disability, and simply because they need to cut they need to cut 500 billion out of the budget so they can increase the military budget by 500 billion dollars, and so the likelihood of you getting a Social Security disability is pretty slim based upon what what our government really wants to do. Will your projects be successful? Okay. I will write that question down. So you have another question. And so for KKAA, could you please write your question down where I told you to do that, please? So do you have any questions that are not do you have any questions about for me that are not that are about the channel and so forth? Because this show is really about a question and answer about this show. Do you have any questions like that? So when I kind of talked about my first tarot deck is this one, followed by my second tarot deck, which is this one. And actually, it's pretty neat. I haven't. This is my second tarot deck. And then I have some ones that I don't like at all. So we have the decks that I don't like at all is like this one. The idea of it is kind of nice. It has an interesting idea behind it. But the artist took huge liberties with it. So your wands were more like spears, and so wands like spears, pentacles like rings, the four people that dare to. Okay, I'll ask that question. I actually don't know the answer to that. Because I'm actually really new to tarot, and to believe it or not, I actually I'm really really new to tarot, and I haven't studied tarot at all. So beyond like reading the I have a bunch of books, but I haven't actually read them. So this tarot deck is kind of interesting. But see here, this is like your cups, and your cups are like these like these barbecues where there's a lot of flames, and so So the interesting thing about it, that's what one of the things is. It's and then the guidebook is, it totally doesn't talk about these things. It doesn't talk about why the wands look like spears, and it doesn't talk about why do the cups look like flaming barrels of flaming barrels, cauldrons, flaming cauldrons of a flame. That doesn't talk about that. So it's like the person that did the art, there was, and it was like there's the person who did the art and the person who did the guidebook, they never conferred together. So you have this idea that completely fell flat because there was no communication between the person who wrote the guidebook and the person who did the art, like different departments. And it was like DC Comics saying, "Oh yeah, let's get on a theme tarot bandwagon and let's build a DC comic based um, tarot deck." And so it was like I got it and I didn't realize how terrible it was. Now I have this other one, this Oracle deck. Similarly, so it would be good if they went into, in the guidebook, if they went into the people that they put in there and gave some attributes of the characters. So if you know the characters, then maybe this one is for you. But I don't actually have that knowledge like that, so this one is like completely useless to me. It's like a useless product. This one here is a completely useless product. And now I like this one, but it stinks. It kind of triggers. It gives me migraines. Now the most unusual tarot deck I have is this one here, and get the animals wrong on the card. Yeah, they do that. That happens. And now this one is one of a tarot deck that's kind of, it's really interesting, but it also, but its guidebook actually goes through and explains everything. It explains things. So this is kind of a Native American theme, and the guidebook does explain everything. Now haven't, like I say, there's two decks that I really use, and I'm using those all the time. And now I have like just a little bit earlier, I talked about the smallest tarot deck I have. The box is coming apart. Yeah, some get the animals wrong on the card. They do that. I don't have any animal-based ones, so this one here, you got your 5 of Wands. It's that sometimes they get, that's actually less important, the color schemes, as long as they kind of do a little bit of explaining in the guidebook. And then this one here is the largest tarot deck I have. And so it has like these giant cards. Actually, I really like this one because I like how they redrew the court cards. This one, I did a video on this earlier, but they redrew the court cards so they're like easier to see. So yeah, color schemes are extremely important as long as if they deviate from, as long as they explain the deviations in the guidebook, I'm fine with those color changes. But yes, my favorite tarot is, it first was the Radiant, but it's because it's really colorful. But I actually like the Universal Weight tarot coloration the best. Now I have now this is also a this, I like this deck. This one is is a joke deck, but it's actually surprisingly accurate. So a year ago when I started streaming, I was actually using this tarot deck. This is not a tarot deck, but it has like cards like the service dog or the comfort dog, or like babies, like you're being a baby, or like, oh, here's the magician, you're a stand-up magician, or cosmetic products, or here's one here is like a a zombie. But there's also another one in here that's like really interesting. Or here, you are living in the projects. You're living in the projects. Or oh look, surprise! There's something in your brain that's dysfunctional. Pills, broken bed, mask. Uh, like here, what you're hanging in a locker like a meat on a hook. Yeah. Well, I actually I wrote poetry and so forth for many many years, and I actually just welcome. So I want to show you this one card in here that's kind of funny. This is like it's probably in this other pack over here. Where is it? So like one of the cards here, like it's an ashtray full of butts. Welcome to the 1 year celebration of streaming on this channel. So actually, I've only been reading for about a year, a little over a year. Steaming bag of trash. And then it has like a bucket of crap. I'm gonna find that one. So this is an interesting one. This is a good trainer deck because actually it trains you. You're just reading the pictures. Oh, here we go. And then we have this card here. Um, welcome Enoch Magic. Welcome. And so this tarot deck, which is not really a tarot deck, but it's like how I describe this thing is. Let's say you have a party at your house. A couple people know that you're a tarot reader, but the vast majority of the people there don't. And so one of those people outs you and says, "Oh yeah, would you read people's cards?" And then you don't want to, right? Because there's like all these fundamentalists there. You got these evangelicals, and you got all these other people there. You don't really want them, or your family. You don't really want them to know that you're a tarot reader. So then you pull out this one, your joke tarot deck, and you give them readings that are joke readings. They give you making up stories and whatnot. Maybe they're accurate, maybe they're not. Maybe you're just poking fun, because that's what this one deck is for. It's a joke tarot deck. And then so where I do a lot of the more deeper readings is with this in bibliomancy. And so in bibliomancy, I'm actually asking you to choose the page number, and we apply the information on the page number to your question. Now, if I am like really like dialed in, if I'm really dialed in, I can actually feel like I'm kind of like I'm really dialed into the super consciousness. Now today I have a migraine and I'm not able to really do that because it's hard when I have migraine issues to access that stuff. So I'm not any good for you for answering questions on days that I have a migraine. The migraine just started coming on like 2 hours ago. And okay, now there was some other fun question that someone asked, and they wanted to ask, what is my favorite science fiction movie? And so for Sarah, this is for Sarah, and my favorite science fiction movies are number 1, Evil Alien Conquerors. Number 2, Galaxy Quest. Number 3, Ender's Game. Number 4, Dune, but not. I like the latest version of it, but the version that the Australians did, they did a mini series 20 years ago in the late 90s. Yeah, in the late 90s. they did a mini series. I liked that version the best. Now, of course, the first version I saw was the David Lynch version, and then I read the book, and then there's of course the latest one. I've seen that one several times. Now, so Dune, all of the Star Wars movies, all of the Star Trek movies. Then we come into some more interesting sci-fi films. Supernova. If you haven't seen Supernova, that's a great film where they find this alien artifact and it sort of changes, it warps them in there, and so it's like accessing into a different portal, into a different dimension. That's Supernova. Another one that's similar to that is like Solaris. Solaris is a film that's kind of like that, where you had that one with the Project Hail Mary, I think that one. But Solaris, whereas the sun is dimming down, and so they send a spaceship to reignite the sun, and so they got this monster nuclear device. But then along the way, they pick up some madman or whatever. I don't know. There's some madness goes on, and then that's Solaris. And then another one that I really like is Interstellar. There's another movie I like as well. Oh, Fifth Element. I love Fifth Element, but I like that one. I think because I had a massive crush on the main female character at that time. When I was younger. Fifth Element. I like that movie. Uh, there's another one that's done by the same dude who did Fifth Element, and it's the City with a Thousand Worlds. A City with a Thousand Worlds, and that's actually really good because it has elements of Fifth Element characters. It was done by the same guy, and then there's the Blade Runner movies. Blade Runner, and so the guy who did Blade Runner did Fifth Element, did the City with a Thousand Worlds. They did Aliens, the Sigourney Weaver alien movies. Now, I'm not really into horror films, but I've seen all of those alien films, and I think I like of those alien horror films. I like the Prometheus one the best because it's the least frightening of those. And then I mentioned Interstellar. Interstellar is a great film. So, Evil Alien Conquerors. Now, that one is a comedy. That one is the stupidest film I've seen in my life. It's the dumbest film, and I like it because it is the dumbest film. Galaxy Quest, I love Galaxy Quest because they make fun of all these science fiction films, and it's not taking itself seriously. And that's what I love about those two films, Evil Alien Conquerors, because it's not a serious film. It's a comedy, and it's extremely dumb. It's the stupidest film I'd seen in my life. Galaxy Quest is just wonderful. I've had it memorized. By Grabthar's hammer, you shall be avenged, or whatever. It's like, and the spaceship has all the different things in it. So those are the movies, science fiction movies that I like. Now, then she also asked me, the question is, have I watched Disclosure Day? And I haven't watched it because I haven't seen a film in a theater since before COVID. So I haven't gone to a movie theater since before COVID. Okay, what does like 10 mean? People say that stuff. I don't understand this language, but I will write the question down because I have a migraine headache and I won't be able to ask your question. Well, thank you. So it looks like I've had enough questions come in that I will do a standalone video for all you guys. Horton 7135. What's next? What's next for Ricky and Nats, Natisa, in their connection. So what I will do is, this is your handle. I will flag you in the video. For all the people who ask questions that I'm not getting to today because I'm not feeling well enough to answer any of your questions. Okay, Natty, I will get to your question. Okay, general life. Okay, so my general life advice for people is to not wait to do the things that you want to do. So I'll give you some examples on why. If you, let's say you want to paint, but you had, like, for me, it was like I wanted to paint most all my life, but I had all these art teachers that said, "Well, you can't draw, Bill. You can't paint unless you know how to draw." Well, I still don't know how to draw, but I did learn how to paint. So, like, this is like some paintings that I've done, and it was like 10 years ago I started painting, or maybe it's a little bit more than 10 years ago now, but I just started painting a little more than 10 years ago. And so if you have something that you want to do it. If you like, okay, don't ask a psychic. If it's like a hobby thing, don't ask any goddamn psychics about it. Just do it. That's what I think. People, I sometimes will like, I'll give you another other example of, some things, because if you keep asking the same people the same questions over and over again, you'll get different answers each time. Everybody person will give you different. Now sometimes, when you go on to channels and ask people who have dual readers, a lot of times their answers are really congruent, and you get the same mojo going on. So you're if you have something you want to do, go do it. Now, a lot of times it gets hard when you have children. If you have children, it gets hard. So, like, I'll give you an example. One of my buddies, a writer friend of mine, he's I think 10 years older than me. He's like getting close to 70. Well, about 10 years ago, he started taking care of his mother, and I'm like at the same age that I am now. And his mom is a retired English teacher. She was a retired English teacher. Now, when she retired, she always wanted to write a novel. Well, what happened is that she had the beginning stages of dementia, Alzheimer's disease, even before she retired as a public school teacher. So, if you want to write books, if you want to write poetry, go out and write poetry. Don't wait. Don't wait till later. That's the biggest piece of advice: is do not wait for later to do things. It doesn't matter if you're any good at it. That's the one thing. If you want to cook, cook. It doesn't matter if anybody likes your stuff. If you like your stuff, that's all. That's the only thing that's important. If your family don't, family is not a good. It's not good to go ask your family what the hell you should do, because they'll usually, sometimes um, they'll give you good advice, but a lot of times they won't. And so a lot of times your best advice comes from people who don't really know you, not your friends and not your family, because outside parties. And so if it's like for relationship stuff, it's people who don't know you will give you much better advice than people who know you, because a person who knows you has a vested interest in you. Your family, they may not like the guy you're with, or the woman or the guy, so they're gonna give you crappy advice. Now, if you're with somebody and you have problems, if your relationship has problems, my advice to anybody is to seek a marriage counselor. If you're married, seek a marriage counselor, for having that outside a voice. It's necessary to sometimes have an outside voice, to somebody who can really listen to you, who's paid. It's their vocation, it's their job. They're paid to do that. To go to that person. Don't go to your dad. Don't go to your mom. Don't go to your pastor. Don't go to your priest. Don't go to the guru. Don't go to them. Go if it's a relationship issue. This is a person you love, but you're whatever. People go through stuff, and it's hard because relationships are super hard, especially marriage. If you are married and you have problems, don't f around with asking family or friends. If it's a real serious issue, go out and seek professional help if you can afford it, because you will you will find out more about yourself by having a guide to guide you through these issues. And because now most people's issues, they solve themselves. You talk with your friends and oh yeah, I had this problem, or and that kind of helps. There is that level of it. But if it's like a really serious brokenness, if there's a real brokenness in your relationship, but you still want to be with this person, you don't want a divorce, you want to make this work, you have like 4 children with them. Well, don't go and do the hard thing. And the hard thing is to go seek out marriage counseling, or if you're not married, but the same thing, a relational counseling, and then seek that out for relationship advice and whatever. Because not just advice, but for those big cracks. Like, okay, if you're with somebody who has a substance abuse problem, now sometimes those things become they're harder to reconcile, because if only one party wants to go, well, then it's not going to work. But if both people want to go to marriage counseling, then do that, because that will be your salvation for your marriage, because it's probably because you stopped communicating. And if you can talk honestly with somebody about this situation, and they can talk honestly, and you can have a sense where you can both hear each other, because that's what you have to do. You have to be able to listen and hear each other. And sometimes the only way that happens is if you had a facilitator, you have a guide to guide you through the process. And your family and your friends can't do it. And that's the thing, is your family and your friends cannot guide you through that process, because they do not have a vested interest, because they may not like your partner, and they may steer you in a direction to get a divorce or to do something like that, and not work through those cracks. That's one of life advice that I have for people. And it's no shame now. And if you have like depression or you have anxiety, there are other things that you can do besides taking pills in order to work on those problems. There's a lot of different things. And sometimes talking to people, I talked to a shrink for 2 years for anxiety, but in the end, I just ended that relationship, because it was like I felt like I was wasting my money, if that makes any sense. But it was a valuable experience to do that. Anyways, that's like life advice for the moment, and I think it's good advice. Now, as far as like you want to do things, just don't wait. Don't wait to do things, to learn things, because you don't know how. None of us know how much time we get here. That's the thing is, not and we don't know. And that's part of the journey of living is there's lots of things we just plain don't know. We don't know when our end date is. For me, I don't want to know when my end date is. I personally don't go go to psychics. I do know a lot of people. When I ask questions, I don't ask those serious questions. Uh, but that's simply because I don't ask questions about tomorrow. And the reason I don't is because I don't want to know anything about tomorrow. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's the thing is I don't want to know about tomorrow. I am almost 60 years old, and I don't know how much time I have left. I have health problems because I'm in my I mean I'm diabetic and I'm trying to get my diabetes under control. I have a hard time seeing at nighttime and things like that. And so, my dad died suddenly in a car accident, and he had things that he wanted to do that he never got to do. And I've seen that over and over again. When you start to get older, when you cross over 40, when you cross over 50, you start to see, what happens when you put off the things you really, really want to do. And don't do that. So if you want to learn how to do couples dancing, do couples dancing. Actually, that's your if you are have an anxiety problem, social dancing is one of the best things that you can do for yourself. But if you're not, and especially if you're single, if you it's one of the best things you can do for yourself. The music, the structure. If you are like me, you are a math science type of person. You are a more of a and you have a little bit on that autistic spectrum disorder. You like this regularity. You like having the regularity of things. That doing learning how to waltz or learning how to contour dance, learning how to square dance, learning how to do swing dancing, and learning how to do these kind of things. And if you're a man, learning how to lead, because that's really hard, because you have to learn about rhythm and being tuned into rhythm. So there's all these things you have to learn, and then once you learn all those things, social dancing is a blast, you know. And so that's like, for me, that was like one of those things that I put off until I was like, well, I put it off because wasn't married. I didn't have a partner, but I just ended up going anyway and just doing it, because so sometimes it's best to do it. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're any good at it. That's what I got to say. But if you just keep doing things, let's say if it's writing, you keep writing, you keep writing, you keep writing, eventually you get better at it. And eventually, when I as a card reader, eventually, um, I'm going to use those other card decks. Like, I need to use this one a bit more. I use it like a minor arcana deck, and it is wholly playing cards. And what's nice about it is but you know, what's nice about it is it has an added dimension. It has these saints on there, so you can go in and look up those saints, and it adds an extra dimension to doing divination. So I answered a few questions here. I don't know if that helped you out, Natty, about um, general life advice for the moment. Yeah, I missed the solstice. I was gonna do a live, but I went to a yesterday because a new dog came into my life, and so that kind of made things kind of it's made things bad. I mean, it's difficult, new dogs. And anyways, the dog's name is Dodger, and I did a video post on this channel about Dodger yesterday, and I talk a little bit about Dodger, and then and so anyways, that's all I got. Does anybody else have any questions about that don't involve any specific thing? Because I have these questions here for the people who asked them, and I will post your channel name into the video link, and there's 4 here, and so what I will do is most likely do a private live stream, and I will address your questions, and then I'll open that live stream up public, and you watch your feeds, and then I'll answer that. I still am kind of confused about that whole second kingdom spouse. I guess I'll have to do some. I don't really understand what that means. Now, my tarot knowledge, I can tell you my tarot knowledge of like, I don't, I haven't really read any of those tarot books that I have. I have quite a few of them, and so I just been using the picture and those keywords up there, and those concepts, and I'm starting to get, and so I'm more as a reader. I'm doing more intuitive. They called it the intuitive readers, where you're using your imagination. And so this is I've read this in one of the Gnostic gospel texts, and for the life of me, I couldn't find it again. I saw it once, and then I never found it again. Conceptually, is that we connect to one another through our imaginations, and that's what the pictures on the cards do. They help you to connect to a deeper level of understanding through your imagination. And so what I will do, and before I close this out, because I got to close this out. It's been kind of a very challenging day for my mom. She's 86, and has been very challenged today. And the thing that it's through our imagination that we can connect through the human superconsciousness to one another, and that is how. And I understand mechanism. Some people talk about their spirit guides and they're whispering. I've actually don't know what they're talking about when people talk about that stuff. I can imagine what it is, but I don't. That's not what goes on in my head. And so, what happens sometimes is that when I'm really what some people say when I'm channeling is that word comes into my imagination and I say that word. And that's kind of how that works. It's not like, are there angels talking to me? I don't know. Maybe. Now, I have felt this before with people who had recently passed on a few times. They're people that I know, not people that you know. And I'm not, as a medium, I'm not that gifted because so I know people who are, but that's not me. And maybe in 10 years I will be. But what has happened is that like I will have gotten like an insistentness. Now one of the persons must have been going through a life review, and it was like, tell this person I am sorry. Tell this person that I'm sorry. Tell them I am sorry that I hurt them. I've had that experience. I've had the experience of because of someone who died by I think suicide. And they said tell this person that I'm sorry I left. I'm sorry. That's an experience that I've had. And then but I've also had the experience like my mom has had the experience of when her dad passed was like a overwhelming like a light that enveloped her, and it was as like I'm okay. Everything is okay. When my grandmother passed away, I saw my grandmother right after, like 2 days afterwards, and she was as a ball of light, and she was a lifelong smoker, and so she was hanging around her purse where her cigarettes were at, and there was like this sense, but it was like, oh yeah, oh that's my grandma. My grandma, she's just like telling me maybe she misses the cigarettes. And then when my dad passed, because my dad died in a car accident. Um, I saw him once, and he waved at me. He waved at me. I never told my dad that I loved him, and I don't think he ever told me, but I could see that. So, as a question, Natty, about general life advice is if don't be afraid to tell people that you love them. You know, um, don't be afraid. That's also, and this is hard. The hard thing is to not be afraid. Being afraid is really easy. It's easy to be afraid. It's easy to be angry. It's easy to blame other people for your problems. That's really, really easy to do. And it's very, very hard to not be afraid. It's very, very hard to really look in the mirror and take responsibility for your actions. That's really, really hard. Okay, what I was going to say was what I had learned in college from my my Old Testament teacher was about how this is from an academic understanding of prophecy and what prophets do. And I think that this is what tarot readers do. We tell the present moment. We're reading the now. We're not reading tomorrow. Now, what happens is that sometimes the energies of the now become tomorrow. And that's what happens. The choices we make today become what happens tomorrow. But what a tarot reader is doing, what a prophet is doing, what a psychic is doing is they're reading right now, and they're not really, when you like, okay, you want to know what's going to happen for the next 3 months. That's kind of like a lot of readers struggle with that question, and so they're kind of um, they struggle with it because conceptually they are, at least not all. There are a lot of some of them that aren't, but there are some that are that really they struggle. At least I struggle with that because I am really rooted in the right now, and that's where I'm reading from is the right now. And sometimes the now becomes tomorrow, and I've seen it happen many times in readings that I've done. That now becomes tomorrow. But a lot of times it's like, okay, if a psychic can actually read tomorrow, then a psychic should be able to predict the lottery numbers, but no psychic can. So let me repeat that. A psychic cannot predict tomorrow because if they could, they'd be able to predict the lottery numbers. And no psychic can predict the lottery numbers. And if you look at the last presidential election, and I was watching lots of psychics, and how many of the psychics got the outcome wrong? 90% of the psychics got the outcome wrong. So what I'm saying is that I think it's very difficult to see tomorrow because we're not supposed to know. That's what I believe. Now, when you ask questions about tomorrow, it's all about what today will become tomorrow. And so that's what the reader, and this is in my opinion, the reader is looking at today. What is it today, and then extrapolating forward to tomorrow. Now, I know some people might claim to say that they do see tomorrow, but I don't think they can, and that's my opinion on. Now, that opinion may change. Now, next year at this time, when I'm at the 2 year mark on this channel, I may have a totally different opinion on that. I may think, oh yeah, we can see tomorrow. But at this point in my time, in my journey, I don't think we can. And that's my honest truth, speaking from what I have learned 1 year reading tarot on this channel. So, does anybody have any questions about that? About that conceptually? Otherwise, I need to end this Q&A, and I hope that it was informative to anybody out there listening. However, the people that I do know that are really good at looking into tomorrow, Tarot Ask Backwards, Heart and Soul Connected, Tropical Empress, and Spirit. She's a medium. She broadcasts nightly out of Georgia all night long. She does hear spirits and so forth. And so if you have a question about wanting, but she also charges $40 per reading. And so if that's something you want to pursue, if you want to pursue and you want to listen and to hear what your loved ones on the other side are saying, you can go to Tropical Empress and Spirit, and you can pay $40, and she will try to connect up to your loved one. All right. So Natty, did I help answer that question at all? If you're still there. All right. I'm gonna cut this Q&A off. I've been on for an hour and 8 minutes, and I will be back on later to do a regular reading. And I apologize for those people who asked questions, and I wasn't able to get to them today because I wasn't doing that kind. I know you guys aren't still here, but I really apologize for not doing your questions today. So anyways, this is Bill. I'm with Tools of Fortune, and I just gave away the biggest secret of all. Prophets tell the present and the past. And actually that's kind of an interesting thing, because what you're with telling the past is that you're taking the present and you're putting it into a framework, a religious tradition framework of understanding, of trying to understand what happens today, what went on yesterday, and trying to understand it today. And so most of what prophecy is, and what tarot readers and psychics are, is they are prophets. That's what they are. In a biblical way, because I'm coming from a Christian tradition, and I see it in those ways. I see it in those ways. I'm not into paganism. I don't do witchcraft. I don't really understand it, because a lot of my Christianity gets tripped up by those kinds of things. And it's like, for instance, one of my favorite rock bands, I had a shirt and I haven't actually worn it. One of my favorite rock bands is Pentagram. Pentagram is they sound like a heavier version of Black Sabbath. They are like Black Sabbath. It's one of my favorite bands. I've seen Black Sabbath a few times in concert. Now, I haven't been able to go out in public wearing this. My Christianity has trouble with this symbolism. It has trouble with this symbolism. And I bought that shirt like 15 years ago, but I haven't been able to wear it because the symbolism trips me up. And so, granted, I can't call myself a Christian because I have pretty much rejected all of Paul. I am when I study the Gospels, I study mostly the Gnostic Gospels, the Gospel of Thomas, and or I look at things like Calahil Gibran the prophet, or I'm reading the Upanishads or the Bhagavad Gita, and that I'm going to guidance in other religious forms, and I see I see salvation differently than how mainstream Orthodox Christianity does, and so my how I see it has deviated so much that I really can't call myself a Christian. But I still go to church every week or almost every week. I do miss one here and there. But I love the Christian symbolism and um, like I like icons. I like icons like this. These are I have a lot of icons and the icon art, or you take like this one here. But I can take a look at this and see this as a transformative thing of we have this Jesus figure coming out, reaching through a portal into our world to pull us free, to pull us free. So to me, this is like a tarot image. This is like the judgment card, and so I see I see the symbolism in and Waite. Waite, the Arthur Edward Waite was a Christian mystic. That was one of the things. If you study anything about uh, uh, the people who created the Rider Waite tarot system, is that Arthur Edward Waite was a Christian mystic, and that's something that a lot of people don't realize. But then a lot of Christian mystics aren't, they're not real Christians in a sense. Because if you're doing tarot or you're doing ceremonial magic, how can you be a Christian, right? How can you really call yourself a Christian if you are doing ceremonial magic? Even though if you look at there's one guy I've seen a few of his episodes that he sees the whole layout of the church or the cathedral on the tree of life, on the Kabbalist tree of life, that it is all mysticism, and it all leads to the ceremonial magic and the mass. The Catholic mass is all it's ceremonial magic. It's magic, and it's transformative because it is magic. And you to look at these things, and so you could be a tarot reader, and you can still be Christian, kind of, sort of, yes, no, maybe. I don't know. I could be just, I could just be full of it, right? Maybe I'm just full of it. Anyways, I gotta go. For the 4 people who are still watching, thank you very much. And for you, those who ask questions, I will get to your questions. And we'll see you the next time. Bye bye. This is Tools of Fortune. My name is Bill, and I will see you the next time. Blessings and peace to you. Bye bye.